Welcome to the March Madness Town Hall, where we come together to amplify the voices of those impacted by systematic injustice and work towards meaningful reform. This event is not just about discussing problems, it's about finding solutions, creating change, and standing in solidarity with the families who have faced unimaginable losses as the hands of police violence and pedestrian fatalities. Today, we're honored to have the following speakers share their powerful stories and insight: Vicki A. Willis, Sandra Meir, Miko McCarty, Thierry Rafour, Kizzy Stewart, Yvonne de Loterre, Kimberly Davis, Yolanda McNear, and of course, we welcome our guest speaker, Attorney Kwame Thompson, PC. And of course, my name is Ashley McKenzie, and I am Jayla McKenzie's mother, who was killed on December 16th, 2022, in Memphis, Tennessee, during a traffic stop. So let's get started. We just want to thank you all for joining us, and let's make today a moment of powerful action and lasting change. So the first person that we're going to bring on to speak to tell you about their story is Vicki A. Willis, and
Hi, thank you.
she's the mother of Alteric Pleasant. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Miss Vicki.
Hi, and thank you very much, Miss Ashley, for this opportunity to discuss what has happened to a lot of people across the nation. Um, Al Tariq was my, I can't even say was, it doesn't feel even sound right coming out my mouth. Al Tariq is my oldest son, and he lost his life inside of Cook County Jail, which is located here in the city of Chicago. He had a warrant for his arrest for failure to appear in court. My son was asthmatic. He had uh, many years of struggling with mental health disorders. He wasn't. He wasn't even that old. He was only 27. Um, it's a very difficult thing, and it's nowhere that you ever want to be having a conversation with anybody or putting your child's face on a t-shirt. I I'm trying not to cry now. I never imagined a day in my life when I gave birth to my son that I would only have him for 27 years, 8 months and 2 days. When my son died, and I'm sorry if I said I wasn't going to cry, I am still very heartbroken. And we're coming up on Al Tariq being gone from this world, from this plane. It'll be 3 years in uh, in August. He was declared dead. Something happened to him inside of um, the jail, which is Cook County Jail, which is run by a sheriff named Thomas Dart, who has been over that jail for a very long time, almost as long as Al was alive. Uh, the number for Sheriff Thomas Dart is 312-603-6444. It's took me 16 months to get any kind of video footage. I still don't have the stuff what happened with my son with the police. I don't have all of the documentation. I never received any of his personal properties back from the uh, Chicago Police Department. I tried very much unsuccessfully for a few weeks. The city policy is that they only keep your stuff for about 30 days, and I was denied any of my son's personal property by the desk sergeants, Marnie Reardon, who was actually there the night that Al was arrested, and he went missing with police officers from District 1, located at 1710 South State Street, from July 19th to July 20th. When he appeared at Cook County Jail, his shirt was bloodied. He had blood. I have his clothes. I was able to get that from Cook County Jail. There were blood stains in my son's clothes where he shouldn't have had any. His shirt is pink where it should have been white. And no one at Cook County Jail um, decided to even do any kind of like medical examination of Al from the records that I've been able to receive. I did FOIA request. It took me a year and a half to even, well, 6 months to even find an attorney. I called about 76 attorneys in and out of Chicago, in and out of Illinois. I was turned down. Um, According to the jail, my son passed away of an accident, an accidental drug overdose. Our case has been read in federal court, and the judge that read the case has determined that Al's rights were violated. The Cook County Commissioners, their number 312-603-6391, Bill Laurie, they had uh, a meeting with people whose families have passed away inside of Cook County Jail. My son was not inside of general population. He was inside the medical unit there, which is for those who have mental health issues. So they already know that you have issues, what your health issues are, all of that. It didn't stop my son from dying. I would definitely implore anybody who's in a situation that I'm in to get to know, or you should do it now, who your governor is, who your state's attorney is, who your attorney general is. I reached out to my attorney general, Kwame Raoul, 217-782-1090, Springfield, 312-84-3000, here in Chicago on several occasions to investigate what's been happening to people inside of Cook County Jail. And when my son passed, I found out that there's about 300 other individuals who passed away inside of that jail under mysterious circumstances where they had some kind of medical issue. Their family was not notified, like I was not notified that anything had happened to my son until they declared him dead. And they reached out to his father, who he hadn't seen in over 20 years in Florida. And I'm right here, and my son went to jail with my name and my phone number. And you can Google my name because I used to work for the city of Chicago as a teacher. I reached out to the congressperson who's over my district, Robin Kelly, 202-225-0773, on numerous occasions. It took her almost a year to respond to me, explaining to me that she didn't
Miss
have any.
Vicky,
Uh,
Miss Vicky,
uh,
let me stop you for a second because I'm trying to see why it's not showing up on Facebook. So pretty much
okay.
everything. Give me 1 second.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, I'm sorry. Meg, you're there.
I am.
Okay, it's not showing up on Facebook. What am I doing wrong?
I'm not sure, but we can take care of it here in a little while. I can fix it.
Okay.
And so for next, we have Sandra, but I don't see her on the chat.
You have who?
Sandra?
Yeah, she's next, but we're not worried about no people right now. We got to get it on. We got to get it on Facebook, and Miss Vicky gonna have to tell her story over because nobody heard that.
Okay. Okay, we can do that. Hold on just a
Yeah,
second.
because we the only ones that heard it. Because I don't see it like I got my iPad going, and then I don't see it like I normally see that little circle. This is so weird. Mm, 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 mm. But it says 1 eye right here. What that mean?
I
Oh,
see it on YouTube. I do see it on YouTube.
so you do see it on YouTube? Well, Vicky.
Yes.
But I know it's supposed to go on YouTube, but I don't know what it is. Okay. Well, I guess we're just gonna keep it going because right now the recording's in progress, so they hear us talking.
Okay. So do you want to move on with Miss Vicky? Because we can always repost it to Facebook after it's over.
Yeah, they're hearing, the audience is hearing everything we're saying right now because we're live, so we got to move forward.
Do you want me?
Yep.
Okay, I got
Yes.
you.
Okay, Miss Vicky. So it's on YouTube. So I'm gonna share that link. But go ahead and finish up your story, and then we're gonna move on with Sandra.
Okay. Um, so after Al passed, I found out that there's 370 other people who passed for with mysterious circumstances, and I reached out to our congressperson Robin Kelly, and she told me that there wasn't anything that she could do. I know that the Cook County commissioners have gathered together so that they can start looking at what's happening inside the jail, because when your people are when they lose their life, because my son lost his life due to two agencies, the police department and Cook County jail, but Cook County jail allowed my son to die. um, it's hard. I'm here to push information out about the medical civil rights initiative. I've been working with them for over a year. I've had the wonderful opportunity to go speak with other families who've been impacted. I feel that the medical civil rights needs to be passed in every single state, so that you're not faced with the situation that I'm faced with. The um, the medical civil rights initiative doesn't just address for people who are incarcerated or detained. Um, it covers traffic stops. It covers you, if you are the person who's asked for the police to come, and something happens to you. If you have asthma, diabetes, heart problems, anything like that, any kind of medical condition, the officers who are on the scene do not have any kind of medical expertise. I've also attended a national paramedics conference um, in November, where this also was discussed about, things that happen to people who have medical issues, or some kind of a medical emergency arises. So I think that every person, no matter what your social income bracket looks like, deserves the right to fair, equitable medical treatment should something happen to you. Our case is currently being heard in federal court, so I thank God for that. Um, but I'm just asking, if you hear this, my contact information is 312-618-4616. I think every person who's been impacted in this way should get together and represent your family in a way that you never possibly could before. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Vicky. And we do apologize and send you our most dearest sympathy and empathy on what you're dealing with. But we really appreciate you. Um, and we hope to hear more from you and your story. The next speaker will be Miss Sandra, and she's the mate of Sean Billinger out of Colorado. So is Miss Sandra ready?
Sandra.
Miss Sandra, it sounds a little okay. Try it one more time.
In the waiting room.
Huh?
Sandra is not in the waiting room.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. So Miss Sandra is not here. So hopefully she'll be able to join us soon. So we're gonna move on to Miko McCarty. That is the mother of Larico Williams. You see Miko?
Kizzy is here
Okay,
though.
so let's go ahead and go to Kizzy. Kizzy Stewart is the mother of Alexandria. So we can go ahead and let her come in. That's cool. Is Kizzy there?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you all very much for having me. My name is Kizzy. My daughter, her name is Alexandria. Alexandria she was 20 years old when she passed away. And she went for a walk early Christmas morning and was hit by a car. The most heartbreaking thing about it is that literally all I knew for a while was that she had been hit by a car. She died, and I needed to plan a funeral. It didn't seem like there was very much more interest in getting me more information than that from the people that obviously had more answers than I did. Um, it was just a really sad thing, you're devastated. You hear some news like this about something that your matter created, like my molecules got together and made this whole being, and it was just like in a blink of an eye she was gone. And I don't know, it just kind of it felt insensitive at the time. I felt alienated, like I was the only person that had ever experienced something like this. But then I come to find out that it happens a lot. It happens so frequently in alarming numbers that people all the time are hit by cars, and it's just simply ruled an accident. There aren't any, stiffer rules, like the drivers get to go home and be with their families, while we, the survivors of, the loved ones that we lose, are pretty much just in a position of just figuring out what to do. And it's not fair. Um, One of the things that troubled me the most about this whole situation was there's this looming question that will be a question, I'm sure, unless I just decide to not think about it being a question anymore. But the chances of that are very slim. Is was the driver drinking? Was he drinking? Had he been on any drugs? Um, and so I learned that unless there's like obvious reasons for an officer to administer a field sobriety test, then they just don't have to do it. They don't. There's not a law that says that a driver must be tested for any type of intoxication when they hit somebody and they don't make it, they don't live, or even if they just hit a person. Period. What were you doing? I can see you not seeing somebody from 200 feet away, even 20 feet away, but 2 feet. I just don't understand why lives of pedestrians don't matter more to society, where, yeah, it's a lot of cars on the road, but there are also a lot of people that don't drive, and they should be able to move about freely just as well as everybody else that is behind the protection of airbags. And that's really all I have to say. And thank you guys very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Yeah, pedestrian fatalities is really big. It's really sad because we've connected to two mothers recently, Quanisha Ball and Brittany Glover, and we've man, just to hear some of the things that the families go through, just trying to figure out what happened that night, even the cover-ups that the system, the police does on the night of those incidents, is it's really disheartening. So our hearts go out to you. If you need anything from any one of our speakers tonight, please let us know, and we will try to do as much as we can to get the story out. Even if you want to cry, vent, we're here. Okay. Um, and again, we're sorry about your loss. And so, again, if you need anything, we're here. Thank you for speaking tonight. So, Meg, who else do we have in the studio?
Yolanda next.
Okay, well, let's do Yolanda. Is Yolanda there?
Can you hear me?
Okay, so we have Yolanda McNear. Yep, we hear
Yeah.
you. We hear you.
Okay.
We have Yolanda McNear, mother of Adesha Miller. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good, because I will mess up a name. I would tear it up. Okay. Well,
Okay.
go ahead and tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, my daughter was killed one day before her 25th birthday when all she did was go out to celebrate her life. She was killed by an off duty Detroit police officer at his house, at his party, with his service weapon. It took 25 minutes for 911 to be called after my daughter was shot, and only one call came in out of a party with 40 people in it. Um, Honestly, the city of Detroit treated my daughter's death as though it was something they stepped in and they needed to wipe off their foot. The prosecutor, Kim Worthless, uh, her last name is Worthy. I call her Kim Worthless because that's what she is. Um, Treated my daughter's death as though it was just something extra going on that day. There was no real investigation done. The police department drug out the investigation to the city. It went into bankruptcy, and then they suspended the investigation. And somehow the prosecutor managed to close the case, saying that it wasn't enough evidence, and cleared the officer of all wrongdoing. They never checked this officer for any drugs or alcohol. They have contradicting witness statements, but that wasn't a problem either. We'll just ignore them. It left me with no choice but to fight for my daughter. I was in fight mode from the moment I found out she was gone. And myself and a couple of other people on here, Kimberly Davis, who's going to come up, we're the co-founders of Protect Our Stolen Treasures, also known as POST. And we formed back in 2016 because our children were taken from us, and law enforcement, of course, investigating themselves was finding no problem. We have 8 chapters in 8 different states, and all but one of them is ran by somebody who lost a loved one to police murder, and that is sickening. We have been fighting for a long time for my daughter's case, and I'm left with two recourses: find new evidence, find a video, or exhume my daughter and force them into doing another investigation. They burnt her clothes. They kept her property for 4.5 years. They stole 2 cell phones from my daughter. They stole her diamond stud earring, but none of that mattered. None of that was an issue. And we need to have a different system. There's no recourse for families, especially when it involves a police officer. And in my case, my daughter's murderer was a man of color. So the fight is the fight. Thank you for having me on.
That's interesting that you mentioned that. Thank you for speaking. Because Jalen's officer that was in his incident, those guys were African American. And a lot of times color comes up as we're saying that some officers are racist based on color, but it's really more so of the ego of the officers that we're dealing with our children's incidents. So that was really interesting point that you brought up, that in some cases it's not just Caucasians or whites that are killing African Americans. It's African Americans, blacks on blacks.
Right.
So thank you for saying that. And what is your organization again?
Protect Our Stolen Treasures. You can
Okay.
reach us at protectourstolentreasures .gmail.com, or see our website at protectourstolentreasures.mystrikingly.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And again, our condolences to you. And if you need anything, we're here. And thank you for being on here today. All right. So the next person that we're gonna do, let's see, is Yvonne. Yvonne, is she ready? I think I see her.
She is.
Okay, well, let's go
Yes,
ahead
ma'am.
and let's get you started. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tell us a little bit about your story.
My story is about my partner of 29 years. He was having a mental health crisis outside of a McDonald's in Fullerton, California, and instead of um, the McDonald's called saying that there was two men outside under the influence, and that they wanted them to exit because they were right in front of the doorway, and it was going to be about the time for opening of the McDonald's, and they feared that they were going to do something to either their employees or the customers. And Alejandro's not a violent person. He was just having a mental health crisis at that time. So if you look at the body cam shows that he's having a moment. They tasered him. They used projectiles on him, and all he had was a belt. He never charged the officers. There were 6 officers on site, and not one of them called any mental health team out to assist. They just took it upon themselves to taser him, use projectiles on him, which they use shotguns to deploy these projectiles. And they were saying that one of them pierced his chest, and that's what killed him. But no, I don't think so, because there were witnesses that were recording and saying that it sounded like they were shooting at him, and they even broke a window, according to the what they had stated. And they said that later on, the chief of police of Fullerton stated that he died at a local hospital, which I know he didn't die at a local hospital. He died right there in the front door of the entrance of the McDonald's. And instead of calling a health crisis team to come out to assist, they kept calling one officer after another. So there was 6 officers out there, 5 men and 1 woman. And none of them even attempted to subdue him or anything like that, which he only weighed 150 pounds. He was holding his pants because he was swinging a belt. So he couldn't do much because he had his hand on his pants. So it just outrageous that these officers abuse their authorities to kill people instead of helping them. Where is it where they took an oath instead, protect and serve? All they're doing is protecting and serving a business. The business that Alejandro wasn't stealing, he wasn't trying to break in or anything, um, for them to subdue the way they did to him. He wasn't a criminal. Like I said, he was a very caring person, um, just having a moment. And it just, it just, this system is so corrupted. It starts from the police department. You go to the city council, they're just as corrupted. You go to the DA, they're corrupted as well. They all protect these officers, even if they committed a crime. And they need to be held accountable for their actions. We are human, we're all human beings. And why do they get off scot free for murder when we do not get off scot free for murder. It just it just sickens me that this system needs to be changed, and everything needs to be held accountable. All these politicians, everybody, they're all being paid to do a job that they're not even doing the job correctly, because they all take money from underneath. And then we just celebrated his 1 year on March the 6th. Rain and shine, we were out there protesting, um, to make his story known, that he's not forgotten, and he will never be forgotten, because this is just this whole stamp system needs to be changed, and that's why we're out there. Um, we have an org, Family Demanding Justice, which I connected with other impacted family members, also killed by law enforcement, that we're trying to seek justice, all the way to Chicago, New York, Connecticut, um, anybody really, to make a change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, so much. Our condolences go out to you as well. Oh my goodness. Um, our next speaker will be Kimberly. Do we have Kimberly there?
We do.
All right, let's put her
Yes,
in.
I'm here.
All right, well, welcome, Kimberly. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Thank you for the invite. I'm the mother of Kimani Davis. June 28th, 2015, my son Kimani and his friend Ershon Warren were traveling on a highway in Ohio. An officer for the state patrol by the name of Damon Caruso said that they were speeding, and he decided to chase them for a speeding ticket. Within that chase, they went through, I think, two or three different little cities or towns. And those officers told him to cut off the chase. It wasn't worth it for a speeding ticket. Officer Caruso, the star of the speed chase, he decided that he wasn't going to listen to that, and he kept pursuing them. And he wasn't satisfied until he pushed my baby and Ershon Warren off of a bridge, and they landed. With Ershon's death, my son died the next day. He was on life support, but in my opinion, he died that day. Um, Myself and my husband at the time, his father, had to go to the hospital. This accident happened in Ohio. They sent him to a hospital in West Virginia. Get there, there is none of my son belongings there. Um, I had an officer to tell me that my son, in his words, had a shitload of money, which none of that matters. But they robbed them, they killed them, and I see that the officer Caruso has been getting promotions. No type of no trouble on his end, but I'm left with no son. My grandson is left with no father. Ershon Warren mom had a nervous breakdown. It's a lot of different things that can happen when you lose your child, and it takes a village. And this is a wonderful town hall because there's a lot of not just mothers, parents out here who are grieving like us. It's been almost 10 years come June, and there was no justice for Kimani. There was no justice for Ershon. They leave this world as a villain. And my son had never been in trouble in his life. There was no drugs in his system, no drugs or anything in the car. What you could have left as a mail parking ticket left two young black boys dead, and no one's to answer.
Mm, mm, mm. Do you have anything else to add, Miss Kimberly? Is this is just It was so needed, but it's so emotional. I'm almost speechless. I don't even know what to say. I don't think really prepared myself for some of the stories that I'm hearing. And it's crazy because I listen and I read these stories all the time when people register for Say Their Names, but it's nothing like actually hearing someone verbally tell their story. It hits totally different. Again, our condolences go to you. If you need anything, we're here. Thank you for coming on. I'm almost in tears over here listening to these stories. So I'm about to get myself together. Um, but we're gonna bring on the next speaker. I see Sandra on here. I see Theory on here. Looks like okay, yeah, Sandra, Theory, and Kwame. So that'll be our last three, and we're gonna wrap up, you guys. Go ahead, Miss Sandra. Let you go first, and then we'll end with Kwame.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Go ahead, tell us your story.
Okay. So we're talking about Sean Billinger and the day he died. It was pretty crazy because 3 months before he told me that his girlfriend Jackie was going to set him up as a drug bust. And the day that he was killed, murdered by Officer Hellbig, he and Jackie had gotten a fight in their car. Jackie pulled over at the gas station, mind you. She had picked him up, and I have her on camera picking him up. And she's on YouTube lying that he kind of persuaded her to go with him. And it was her taking him to a drug house to pick up drugs. Then she changed her mind. He got mad and he wanted out of the car. She wouldn't pull over and let him out of the car. She went to a gas station. Instead, he got mad and he hit the window out in the car. That was the catalyst right there for anybody not knowing. 2 weeks prior, this man had just lost his father to cancer, you guys. This manic episode this guy was going through, nobody understood him but me. I knew exactly what he was feeling at the time he was feeling it with Jackie, the whole episode that day. I didn't even know it was him. Well, I did know it was him because I'm on video in the police station telling them they murdered Sean. Officer Helbig was taking Jackie's statements. She was saying he had drug problems, he had knives. Nobody loved him and nobody wanted him. Who says this? This is supposed to be a woman that loves him. Mind you, I'm his ex and I still loved him dearly. He was my best friend. But I don't talk about him like how she was talking about him. It cost him his life that day. People not taking the time to be honest and truthful. Officer Helbig knew Sean. In court, he lied on the stand saying he didn't know Sean Billinger. Um, I felt like the whole court system when we walked in, from the time that they put Helbig up for murder charges, we were just going through the motions. I already knew that this guy was going to get off, and he did. Why? He sat up on the stand and said he murdered Sean. So why is he getting off? Why is there this big thing with cops that they're immune to getting in trouble when they shoot somebody. And they do not follow police policy. You all find a way around that policy to make it acceptable to murder somebody. Why? Why? Why do we all have to go through this? The PTSD, the gang stalking by the cops, mind you, because they don't leave you alone once they murder your family member. They keep attacking anybody they can. Callers for dollars. Any person that's low income that can't fight a ticket, cops go after in towns. You habitually go after the low income person that can't fight back, even the homeless. It's mind boggling that qualified immunity is still dealt with the way it's been dealt with. We don't have faith in our justice system because of this. We need more of Jesse Saray's um, sentencing. We need more of that around our children, our husbands, our fathers, our sisters, mothers, cousins, everybody who's being murdered. We need to question that. We know guns aren't the problem. The problem is the people with the guns. And that goes for cops too. We need them drug tested. We need more accountability about them. It hurts me to see mothers have to fight so long and not even get court. I got court, but I didn't even get the justice I wanted. They acquitted that son of a biscuit eating varmint. And mind you, I told that DA he was going to hurt a kid, and he threatened to blow two kids' heads clean off on video cam. So I was lucky that he got branded a rogue cop. I had to brand him a rogue cop here in Colorado. Why did we have to fight this hard when we know there's facts behind these officers doing wrong by us? And you people in City Hall, the mayor, the chief of police, the DA, you all hide and bury shit. I know because I'm one of the people that had stuff buried about her. When I talk about gang stalking, try 10 years of it before they hurt Sean. They killed Sean. They put me on disability in 2010. In 2019, when Sean moved on my property, they murdered him. You don't call that gang stalking? I do. We need some big change. Big change. Mothers deserve answers. Keeping all of the body from them, the just the autopsy, all of it. I Some parents don't even get their kid back for a year before they can bury him. This is how cruel these systems are to us, and these need changed. These need changed dramatically. You know, maybe O'Rourke didn't always believe in me the way a DA should, but in the end, I came out right, and he had to do something about that cop. It's time we all sit there and do something about the cops that aren't following the policies. You all need to have it happen. Every town, every city, every state, all of it. It needs changed. Um, Sean was hands free when he got murdered by Officer Hellbig. He had his hands up free. Jackie said he had knives. The only knife he had was his grandpa's, uh, like, Boy Scout knife that he got when he was in Boy Scouts. I mean, that was a generational heirloom passed down. And a utility knife that sat there and opened cans and whatever because he was homeless sometimes. When I was in the police station, I knew exactly what he had, and I hadn't been in the man's pockets in 30 years, but I knew what he had in his pockets. So you tell me why somebody that loves him would set him up with a cop to murder him. And that's how I feel. Jackie didn't get charged, but Officer Hellbig did. And they're still out there. Trust me, both of them are still out there living their lives, doing their thing, and it's hurtful every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Sandra. Again, to you as well. Sorry for your loss. If you need anything, we are here, and we're gonna move right along. The next speaker will be Theory, and then we'll end with Kwame Thompson, our favorite attorney. And Theory, are you there?
I'm here if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Go ahead. Tell us what's up. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm
Well,
good.
let me say first because of what was advertised with me. So that's Anton McQuarrie, Corey Wise, Raymond Santana, Yusef Salon, and Kevin Richardson. So the Central Park Five, which is known, which became the exonerated five. And of course, I live in New York. I had dinner with them this Christmas, spoke to Corey on many occasions. Yusef Salam has become a city councilman here in New York. But the one thing that surprised me by being at that dinner, and I know Yusef Salam before he ever run for city council, he had more guards than the mayor. Now, the reason why I bring this up, as per my experience, why would a newly elected city council member have more guards than the mayor? And I'll tell you why. Because when you flip around the status quo, that that the environment that was created after the Central Park Five, when they put us through perp walks and they put on these images of the dangerous black man, and then a white woman gets raped in Central Park, and it becomes a big thing to the point where Donald Trump, even before he became a president, or a politician, even, he wasn't even thinking about that, calls for the death penalty of children that are under 17. Now, the death penalty statute in New York doesn't allow that. So even if they were guilty, they could not have been killed in New York. Maybe Florida, Mississippi, other places where I know they've done that. I bring all that up to say is that that set the environment for four white detectives to shoot a man 41 times going into his own doorway, and that was Amadou Diallo. And as we look at these situations, the emphasis that I have to put forth is that if we say to ourselves, even as a subgroup of the United States, but we still say that the Constitution will protect us, but yet, if we use the Constitution as our not only protection and defense, then throughout the courts, throughout everything that we do, trying to follow the law as Black American citizens, the murder of our people by the state and by the federal government keeps getting reinforced every time a Kyle Rittenhouse or a George Zimmerman or a Daniel Palaio is exonerated. And I have to give all respect to the brothers who decided to change their name from the Central Park Five to the Exonerated Five. But I don't want to, you know, I want to make sure that I'm keeping a division, but I'm also trying to say is how many have been exonerated when Daniel Palaio just walked free last week for choking to death Jordan Neely, when the cops in Mississippi were able to cop out to a lesser included offense than attempted murder because they knew that they shot a man right in his throat. The bullet went in his throat. He survived it, but they basically abused four black men in Mississippi. Of course, we know about Sandra Bland, and his case is coming up, and the North Americans Against the Police State, who I, as the communications director, will be there. Okay. What I'm trying to get at is why would you shoot a woman 6 times in the head over a cup of boiling water, even if when you had a division? So now people in the movement like yourself, Miss McKenzie, and I have to give you so much praise for putting this together. But I'm saying all this to say that the one thing that I see, because the North Americans Against the Police State, after the Tamir Rice shooting, said, let's boycott Hasbro, let's boycott whatever company had that water gun that allowed the cops to shoot that 14-year-old boy because he had a toy gun. And of course, last Friday when they did the boycott, I supported that, and I was very, because that is where it is. Hawk Newsom, the head of Black Lives Matter, we're both out in front of the courthouse after Daniel Penny got released for choking to death Jordan Neely. And he said to me, he said, Terry, so what are we going to do? Fifth Avenue or Broadway for the permit? And I said, Hawk, I said, man, we could march to Mars. What did that verdict just show us? We could march to Mars and these people don't give a damn. We live in a capitalist society. So if we live in a capitalist society, then we have to hit them where the essence of that society is, which is capitalism. And I'm very glad that people have started to see that boycott is the way to go. And I'm firmly behind that. One one other issue that is a problem, though, is that when we first thought about it, we said, "Well, let's boycott Apple." Everybody put their cell phones down, but we know that the level of sacrifice that happened when Martin was here, and to quote Martin, we have some very dangerous days ahead. But I'm not worried about that now. Is that I'm not saying that I'm strong enough to get somebody to boycott a cell phone as long as people are sleeping outside for the next Apple. But what I am saying is that if we could get a unification of boycott as well as sit-ins as opposed to marches, because sit-ins and what they did in the 60s, if you got to sleep with somebody, eat with somebody, go to the bathroom in Porter Sands in the middle of winter and unify on that level, then they'll come to the table. The billionaires, the 1%, whatever you want to call them, that caused this because they set the environment that allow the police to feel that they can be arrogant enough and strong enough to just kill people with impunity. And Donald Trump is representing that, and the MAGA movement is representing that. So I mean that to say we got difficult days ahead because it is imperative because of the state of the political side of things. And someone who basically marched all over Philadelphia to get votes out for Kamala, marched in 5 cities in Michigan, knocked on door to door to get votes out for Kamala. And I have sciatica, okay? And I wasn't able to go towards the end of it, but a lot of people that are tied to me did. So if we can keep that ideal Boycott, boycott, boycott. If we can get a big enough boycott, then the people that are really in power, including Elon Musk, who we're going to do the best we can to get him out of here. He's not an American citizen and he shouldn't be making the decisions that he's making. And there are forces that are going against that. But at the end of the day, us as black people, if I say nothing else, I want to say to everybody that's listening, we are, we are North Americans against the police state. And that with the NAACP, may Hazel Duke rest in peace, who marched till she was 90 and was on the Edward Pettus Bridge. If we can get that kind of fervor and collectively the energy that is in your mind to know what you're doing, confident in what you're doing, have the protection of masses, it will go into somebody else's mind. And once it does that, then it'll change the reality. It's the reality that got people angry. You change the reality, then that overcomes the oppression, the disenfranchisement, and the murder of our people. And that's basically that I am glad Miss McKenzie invited me to this forum because that's what we're going to do. I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but I know one thing. I know that we've hit such a peak and a plateau. And if we talk about the cases that are coming up, Sonia Massey and the brother in Florida who came to his door with the firearm that was licensed by the federal government
That's
and they
Roger
killed him.
Fortson. Roger
Yeah, yeah,
Fortson.
right, Roger. And so the thing is, if we use the Constitution as our defense, as well as our avenue for justice, and then they reinforce our murder by exonerating people like Zimmerman, Antaleo, Dorsman. Um, I mean, the list is endless. Uh, Fruitville Station, and it just goes on and on and on, which is basically saying we go about it the right way. After you killed all the pamperers in the 60s to go against the status quo, and then you reinforce it right behind that by letting Daniel Penny walk free, letting George Zimmerman walk free. Even somebody who didn't kill necessarily black people, Kyle Rittenhouse, who killed white people in the defense of black people, and you let him go free. So our unification, because we are the original people of the earth, is going to stop it. But we have to be able to break those barriers of commercialization. Every black man can't be a rapper. Every black man can't be a football player. So make your kids Thurgood Marshalls. Turn your kids into Thurgood Marshalls. Turn your kids into Ben Carsons. Turn your kids into Dyson, the science guy. And we have to do that because we were doing it already, and I know Miss McKenzie is aware. And for my other brothers that may not happen to be African American, okay, I wanted to mention one more thing, okay, in the name of Lauren Valdez, who's a very big activist on the West Coast, and they killed her husband, okay, Juan Lopez Guzman. And I mention that because the Latin brothers, with the thing that Trump is doing in this immigration thing, I don't know if most people know this. There's 6 million Chicanos in southern Los Angeles. Some of them were just like we were. They didn't allow Mexicans to be born in hospitals. So they didn't have perfect birth certificates or perfect records. And they're getting caught up in these uh, raids, these ICE raids. And they've been here their whole life. And they're American citizens. Either the woman is Mexican and the father is a gringo or vice versa, which makes them American citizens. And now they're getting rounded up in these things. So, like you said, after everybody spoke, Miss McKenzie, if anybody sees the police beating on anybody of color unreasonably or who wasn't committing a crime, please contact the North Americans Against the Police State at naaps.us and donate to us, and we will be there before the National Action Network will be there. If that photo that is on the flyer, that's where Dylan Roof killed all those people in South Carolina. That's the awning of that church where he walked from one door to the other and killed all those people. And I called Dr. West and said we got to be there, and he met me there with the drum line from uh, you know the Howard University and Spelman and all the one in Atlanta, Morehouse. He's on the board of Morehouse, and he told me he would meet me there. And I thought it was Farrakhan when I saw all those brothers in bow ties and suits, but they had drums and they.
Uh-oh, did it cut us off? I think we lost them.
Hello,
Okay. Okay.
can
Are
you
you
hear me,
there?
Ashley?
Yeah, we hear
I'm
you now, but we're
uh,
gonna need you to go ahead and start wrapping it up for us.
okay. Let me
Or you
wrap it up. Let me wrap it
yeah.
up. So, uh, once again, let's unify and boycott all the speakers, and I know Sandra Mayer. I know her well. She's a friend of Lawrence, although we're on different coasts, so I never met her. But if we can put that together and put together another boycott that we can feel everybody will join, let's do that. Thank you so much,
Thank
Ashley, and we'll
you.
talk soon.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming. And we learned a lot today, so we really appreciate it. We're gonna have to have you come back. But
Okay.
our final speaker is Kwame. Kwame, you let's end it out for us. You ready? I don't hear you, Kwame. Are you muted? Uh-oh. Kwame, you there? We can't hear you.
Miss McKenzie?
Yeah, we're looking for Kwame.
All right. Will this be able to retrieve
Okay.
for, say, a couple of.
You're live, so I'll just text me.
Can you hear me, Ashley?
I can hear you now, Kwame.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. First, condolences to all of the impacted families. I'm Kwame Thompson, and I'm a litigator in Atlanta, Georgia. I've practiced personal injury and wrongful death law for 25 years, and thank you all for having me. I wanted to remind and reassure each impacted family that there is no statute of limitations for murder. Therefore, we must continue to fight for justice until each officer is held accountable. There is always hope. Our mission includes to end the police killings of innocent men and women. You are not alone. We answer to a higher power. I want to talk today a little bit about the origins of policing and the legal shield of qualified immunity. Law enforcement historians have theorized that modern policing in America is rooted in the slave patrols of the colonial South, whose sole purpose was to subjugate Black people and to maintain white privilege. These patrols enforced state sanctioned terrorism and genocide upon African American people, captured those who attempted to escape, and upheld a racial hierarchy that persisted long after slavery was abolished. This historical foundation set the stage for systemic racial disparities in policing that we continue to see this day. In response to the rampant racial violence and lawlessness during Reconstruction, Congress enacted the Civil Rights Act of 1871. Remember, this is the Civil Rights Act of 1871. We'll talk about one of the other civil rights acts at another time. But this is commonly known as the Ku Klux Klan Act. It's codified at 42, section 1983. You all hear 42, section 1983 as in the section 1983 police killing cases. And this is because this is the statute at 42, which is the United States Code, section 1983. This statute allows for private citizens to sue state officials, including law enforcement officers, when they violate constitutional rights under the color of law. So when you hear that someone is suing under section 1982, here is the statute. It reads, every person who, under color of any statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of any state or territory or the District of Columbia, subjects or causes to be subjected any citizen of the United States or other person within the jurisdiction thereof to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the Constitution and laws shall be liable to the party injured in an action at law, suit in equity, or other proper proceedings or redress. That is the Section 1983 Color of Law statute. Section 1983 was passed in a direct response to the brutal murders and the civil rights violations of thousands of Black people, our ancestors, who were murdered by the state. There is a barrier to justice in the form of qualified immunity. Despite the power of Section 1983, a major legal doctrine, qualified immunity, has significantly weakened its effectiveness. Qualified immunity is a judicially created doctrine that shields government officials, including police officers, from civil lawsuits unless their conduct violates clearly established constitutional rights that a reasonable officer would have known. So notice that this is judicially created. Section 1983 was created by Congress. And you recall the three branches of government. The executive branch enforces the laws, so the executive branch enforces 1983. And the judicial branch, they interpret the laws, and they created the doctrine of qualified immunity. The framework of qualified immunity was established in Harlow versus Fitzgerald, and you can find it cases 457 US 800. It's a 1982 case. It set the legal precedent that still governs lawsuits today. The court's ruling in Harlow created a two-part test that plaintiffs must meet to overcome a government official's claim of qualified immunity. So just to give you just a little bit about the case, the Supreme Court had a question to determine whether presidential aides and other high-ranking government officials were entitled to absolute immunity or qualified immunity when performing discretionary functions. Discretionary meaning that they had to use their own discretionary judgment as opposed to ministerial duties. The court ruled that executive officials are entitled only to qualified immunity and not absolute immunity when sued for civil rights violations under Section 1983 or similar laws. The clearly established law standard was set in this case. Harlow held that government officials cannot be held liable unless their actions violated clearly established statutory or constitutional rights of which a reasonable person would have known. This means that if there is no prior case with nearly identical facts, the government official is shielded from liability. Now, that is important to the Section 1983 police killing cases, because if there are no prior cases in that jurisdiction with identical facts, then the government official can be shielded from liability. So courts must look at previous legal precedent to determine whether the conduct was clearly established at the time of the incident. The Harlow decision significantly strengthened qualified immunity by shifting the focus from an officer's subjective intent to an objective legal test based on prior precedent. Because Harlow versus Fitzgerald created a judicially created standard in its application, it varies across different jurisdictions. So, for example, in Georgia, in our jurisdiction, the Northern District of Georgia, the ruling case is Purdue versus the City of Atlanta. It's an 11th Circuit case in 1998. It states that, and it reaffirms that police officers are entitled to qualified immunity unless their conduct violates clearly established law. Then we have the Middle District of Georgia, Pelliter versus Zeifeld, addressed how the standard for clearly established rights is interpreted in excessive force cases. The shooting cases or excessive force cases, the killing cases or excessive force cases under 1983. So we have the Middle District of Georgia, the Eastern District of Georgia, and I would love to come back because I've heard you all talk about so many different states, and we want to look at the clearly established standard in those states. But also, there is a call for reform. Jurisdictions have now either limited or removed qualified immunity. And let's look at a couple. While the U.S. Supreme Court has declined to reconsider the Harlow versus Fitzgerald case and the federal doctrine of qualified immunity, it remains intact. Some state and local governments have taken action to limit or abolish it within their jurisdictions. New York City in 2021. In March 2021, New York City became the first major U.S. city to end qualified immunity for police officers. Colorado in 2020. New Mexico in 2021. These jurisdictions demonstrate that qualified immunity is not an absolute shield. It can be reformed or eliminated at the state and local levels. So thank you all for having me once again, and I look forward to meeting with you all and learning more and hearing more of your stories, because again, our mission is to stop all of these lists from growing. So thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Kwame. It's always a pleasure to have you. We learned so much. Before we end, is Val on there? Eric Holmes' mom, do you want to take us out of here?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I just want to say thank you, Kwame, for that. I actually learned something in that myself. It gives you a focus, I guess, for to address qualified immunity at a state level. I hear we talk so often about it on a national level, but to address it on a state level can be some great ideas for focus, because I've always heard it on a national level, never heard just focusing on it on a state level. So you were able to hear states that was doing that. To the parents that spoke earlier, especially to the second one with the pedestrian, I want to give you my condolences. Ashley mentioned Brittany. She also mentioned Quanisha, which is pedestrians that we know and have met through this fight. I have two of my own. One is going to be my cousin, AJ, justice for him. He was struck and killed by a professor. I also have a cousin, and he goes by Man. So his real name is Charles. And he was struck also by a pedestrian. So something needs to happen in regards to that. And if we can just keep pushing as parents, keep pushing as organizations, whatever you got to do, make the fight for the people and just go from there. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
So we want to send our condolences, and we want to thank every speaker that spoke today. We will be back live on next week at 7 p.m. and we have some more families that will be speaking out. We also have the media impact survey that we need everybody to fill out if you can. And pretty much that's just telling, it's almost like a case study that we're looking at your experience with the media, whether or not it's good or bad. We want to hear from you. We also have the petition out for the reinstatement of the the National Police Misconduct Database that President Trump just eliminated. We would like to see that back, but we would like some new things added. We're not going to really go into a lot of detail about that because that could take another hour. So if you guys get a chance, go to my page on Facebook. It's Ashley McKenzie. ITSAShleyMcKenzie. And you'll see those surveys. You'll also see articles and just discussions and all type of different things about police brutality on my page. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you back next week at 7 p.m. at the same spot. Thank you. Bye-bye. His hands were up, and then you would see them drop. You see his hands drop, like he was taking his